Unlocking the latest legendary characters in Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes has never felt more expensive than it does today. Look at GL Ahsoka Tano with 3 Relic 9 characters, Leviathan with 2 Relic 9 characters, and I'm sure that the buck doesn't stop there. We are getting constant marquee releases now every 2 weeks, almost always leading to something or some desirable goal or assault battle. People are asking me, Scribe, please give me a hand here. Help me find the best ways of farming relic materials. I'm going to do that for you today. We're going to break down all the tips and tricks that I know in helping you farm those relic mats and get the relic levels that you need. Let's talk about this. Now, I'm not talking about the gearing process of getting a character from Gear 1 to Gear 13 or Relic levels. I'm just looking at the actual Relic levels themselves, and we can break it down into 2 constituent parts, basically. We've got the Relic Scrap that we need, and I'm talking about your Carbonite circuit boards, your Bronzium Wirings, your Electrium Conductors, your Zinbiddles, your Gyrda Keypads, your Droid brains, your all that sort of business. And then you've got your signal data, which is broken up into 3 individual pieces. You've got your incomplete, your fragmented, and your flawed signal data, essentially. And how we get these differs based on what item you're looking for, right? Now, typically speaking, if you're looking at relic levels 1 to 7, you are going to need a lot of the first 2 signal data types and a little bit of the 3rd signal data type, and a lot of the early items. I'm talking about your Carbonite circuit boards and your Bronzium Wirings. So let's look at our signal data first and foremost. So the 3 types are fragmented signal data, incomplete signal data, and flawed signal data. They can all be farmed on a daily basis through your Cantina energy. This is why it's so important to go through and always triple refresh your Cantina energy. You can do this many times a day, but I recommend that all players that can do at least 3 refreshes of this. It will cost you 300 crystals a day, which I know is expensive. You will then use that energy to farm the various nodes. Just farm whichever one you are in particular need of. Generally speaking, the higher levels require more of the higher end signal data, okay? And also the drop rates on the lower end are a lot easier. So that's kind of your very base number 1 go-to, this is where I should be farming this signal data, but it's not the only place that you should be trying to get it from. There are many recurring events in this game that will reward you with a small nominal amount of those signal data pieces. The big ones are always going to be your assault battles. These always give you some element of fragmented signal data or flawed or incomplete, so it's very worthwhile you always having teams that can perform well in these game modes. Get that 3-star so you can sim it in the future. These are usually just sort of monthly ones. I think we get 7 or 9 assault battles each month, and it's a nice recurring source for you. You can always find signal data in the weekly shipment stores. Now, this just costs pure crystals, and I don't necessarily recommend doing this unless you are really whaling heavily. You should get the bulk of your signal data just from refreshing your Cantina, and then try to top up as you go via assault battles. There is also a weekly pack that comes to the game that you can buy with crystals. 1600 crystals a day will give you between 5 and 15 of each of these signal data, as well as a smattering of other things and some energy to boot. Now, this is more of a gamble. However, what I will say is even if you get the low-end drops, the value is still there based on the crystal expenditure, especially when you look at the fact that you get some additional relic scrap to go along with your additional energy, you get some credits, you get some mod energy as well. It's not a bad one, but it's not really one that I particularly invest in unless I'm feeling like I've got loads of crystals to just be throwing around here. Not really something I massively recommend. For those of you that do well though, there is a weekly relic cargo package that in my opinion, is one of the best value items to purchase in the game. Spend £9.50 or $10 or however much it works out for, and you do get a small amount of signal data, which is nice, some extra regular energy, which you can use on farming Chyrotechs and that sort of thing, and a good smattering of additional relic scrap to go alongside it. It's pretty good for those people that want to spend money. The last place that I say you can get it from is in Conquest. Now, this only really applies if you happen to have picked up the Conquest Pass, because that frees up your Conquest currency to be able to use it on things like flawed signal data, Zinbiddle Cards, those relic scrap pieces that you happen to might be missing, or potentially even some Gear 12 Plus pieces. This is one of the chief drivers as to why I like to buy the standard Conquest Pass. I've already red boxed every other Conquest and I've got all my Conquest characters, Buying that pass enables me to buy additional signal data across many of the different sectors on the Wandering Scavenger nodes. It's pretty worthwhile, but it only really pertains to those people, like I said, that buy that Conquest pass, okay? If you don't buy it, you're better off spending your additional Conquest currency over here on getting the latest Conquest character or catching up on those that you might have missed. Conquest characters are typically some of the most powerful characters in the game. Let's take a look and break down the availability of the various types of Relic Scrap then. If you go over to the Xaereth Scavenger, you'll be able to see all of the different relic pieces, how many you have of them, and what you can break down in order to actually get them unlocked. So we'll talk about this method first and foremost, scrapping materials in order to get Relic Scrap, alright? There is value to this to a certain degree, but every item has got different value when it comes to it. We'll start off with Carbonite Circuit Board. This is probably the second most used and hardest to obtain of the Relic Scraps. Essentially, you can be using your high value items. So if you filter your items by value, you'll see that this has got a 3 times multiplier when it comes to how many circuit boards we're going to get by it. Or you can go by quantity and just sort by the items that you have the most of. Now, I really don't recommend using things like Mark III Carbantes to try and get yourself a smattering of Carbonite circuit boards. That's not the way. You definitely go by value and you pick these items here. In particular, I use the Mark II Fabritech Datapads, and we'll get to why I picked this one in a second. But simply, it is highly available and it still gives you the best sort of return for scrap. So if I was to get rid of all of it, I would only get 188. The conversion rate is awful, guys. It's awful. So this is just not your last step, but this is something that you should only be using when you absolutely have nothing else to scrap down or no other means of getting Carbonite circuit boards, okay? The best way to be getting Carbonite circuit boards, and I would almost agree, certain other ones to a degree as well, is through the monthly packs that come out. These tend to come out at the end of a Grand Arena Championship. Once that's finished up, usually you'll get a hunk of crystals from your championship points, and then these packs will be available. Each of these packs is worth about 500 crystals, and you can purchase them 10 times. If you were to purchase 10 times the Carbonite circuit boards pack, you should come out with at least about 1,000 Carbonite circuit boards, and you could probably get away with 400 to 500 maybe on the Bronzium Wirings. Now, there is an element of RNG to this. You're never guaranteed a specific amount, but they are very, very valuable in my opinion. It just ends up costing quite a bit of crystals. I do recommend this as a way of topping up these items as you are going through. I would always recommend Carbonite circuit boards and always recommend Bronzium Wirings in particular. The others, I feel you have got better means of unlocking, okay? But they're there if you need them. Now, when it comes to finding those Mark II data pads, I always find that the Fleet Battles 2E, the one that you need to use to farm furnaces, is the best way to do it. You can farm this with your fleet energy when you're done with all your ship hard farms, and that will get you a very valuable Gear 12 Plus piece, whilst also giving you a stockpile, up to 2 per sim, of this Fabritech datapad. So as you're farming this every day, just standard nodes, you are building up a stockpile that you can later convert into Carbonite circuit boards. I find it a useful node to be farming just at the end of your farms, essentially. When you're farming for Carbonite circuit boards, I do recommend using nodes either 1C on light side or 1D on light side. This is under the normal light side, because essentially this gives you a huge supply of things like Mark 1 CEC furnaces. You can get up to 6 of these per sim, and the energy count is really small. So you can farm a lot of energy on these nodes. Either one of them, they're both the equal level of return on investment, essentially, to get a big stockpile that you can break down into Carbonite circuit boards, okay? But even if you did like triple refreshes and farm these nodes exclusively, the breakdown and conversion rate with the Xaereth Scavenger is still pretty bad. Looking over once again at Bronzium Wirings, I do recommend those Relic Amplifier packs that you see at the end of Grand Arena Championships. That's your number 1 location to farm these from. However, I also highly recommend using the Mark V Fabritech datapads. The reason I recommend these is because, once again, they have the highest conversion rate. It is a 10-to-1 ratio, essentially. And more importantly, the node that you can farm this on is incredibly valuable. Essentially, you can farm this on 7A, I think it is, or 7B. There it is, 7B, which is the node that gives you Kyrotech shock prods. Kyrotech shock prods are used everywhere. It's like a 3-to-1 ratio compared to the computers. It is the most in-demand Kyrotech piece in the game, so you're never wasting energy by farming this node. Farming this node can give you 2 Fabritech data pads per sim. So you'll be able to build up a big healthy chunk of these items as you're just farming Kyrotech. Now obviously this is under the circumstance where perhaps you've already finished your other farms. You've already finished all your hard node farms, so that regular energy is just there for you to farm gear. This is the node that I recommend, 7B just in general. Chromium Transistors is next, and everybody will be super happy to know that this is one of the easiest ones to get in the entire game. You want to be using this item here, the Mark 7 Blast Tech Weapons mod. The conversion rate on this is phenomenal. Look, I've got 365 of them. That would give me over 1,200 chromium transistors. Super, super easy. This item is never a problem, okay? Never a problem. And the great thing about this is you can find this very, very frequently from your shipments. If you head over to guild activity shipments, it will often be in this slot here. Okay, it'll cost you 150 of your guild tokens over here to get 10 of them. And if we go back and take a look at the breakdown once again, just go over here to Chromium Transistor. If I was to give 10 of them, it would work out at 33 Chromium Transistors. Simply buy this every single time you see it in the guild store. Build up a nice healthy stock, and like I said, whenever you need it, you're just like, yeah, there we go, there's 1,200. Now, it's not the only one that's really good. These Mark 7 ball mods are also very, very good, and you can craft them relatively easily. So you can get yourself a decent supply. I just don't think they're as cost efficient as just buying these straight up Mark 7 Blast Tech Weapons mod. This one is super, super easy to get, guys. Keeping in that same vein, we've got the Aurodium Heatsink, okay? This one is also very, very easy, and there is a really good trick on this one, okay? So essentially, you want to be using this Mark 3 Sienna Holo Projector, all right? But you'll notice that over here, we've got the salvage piece. Now, salvage pieces we can use to create these holo projectors. If you look over here, it costs us 20 of these to build one projector, okay? So if I was to go in and I was just going to put, all right, well, let's put in 20 of these. How much would that give us if I just, submitted 20 to the Jawa over here? It would give us 110 essential points on 2 of these, okay? 110, remember that number. Over here, if we use the exact same amount of the exact same item, and then we go to salvage this, it gives us 260. It's 2.5 times more efficient to build the full projector than it is to give the individual salvage, all right? This is the best way of getting Aurodium Heatsinks, bar none. Craft your Sienna salvages into the full projector and use them instead, all right? It's a really good way of doing it, and more importantly, you can get these from your Mark 1 raid currency. They appear there very frequently, and they are very, very cheap, all right? So if you're using your guild currency here, potentially buy the 120 stack that you're able to get out there every so often. That will convert into 6 of the full projectors and give you loads and loads of those Aurodium Heatsinks. That is the only item that you should ever be using to make Aurodium Heatsinks. Don't buy the packs, don't do anything else, just use it from the scavenger. When it comes to your Electrium Conductors, your Zinbiddles, your Impulse Detectors, it is my firm belief that you should be using your Mark 3 raid currency to buy these pieces, alright? It's the best way to do it, in my opinion. If you head over once again to the Guild Activity Shipment Store and we just go down to our Mark 3 Guild tokens, this is what you should be spending that currency on, okay? Get your Impulse Detectors, get your Zinbiddles, get your Electriums. As soon as you run out of money, wait for the next raid and pray, okay? This is why I say it's so important for everybody to be performing as well as they possibly can in raids. Get the highest box you possibly can. Encourage everybody in your guild to get the highest box that they possibly can. Get the biggest guild box that you can possibly get to maximize the amount of Mark 3 tokens you get, because it directly translates into you having an easier time relicking up the rest of your roster. These get used so frequently, from like Relic 5 to Relic 9, that you just need so much of it. You can also use it to get your Gyrda Keypads, but arguably you can let them build up slowly over time. Get some of them from TB results, get some of them from various assault battles, and then maybe occasionally use crystals to buy them directly, because the conversion rate here is pretty expensive to buy Gyrda Keypads from here. You can buy Gyrda Keypads just straight up from the weekly shipment store. I think it works out at about 5,000 crystals in order to get one full piece. No, okay, it's a little bit more than that. Oh, no, that sounds about right. Yeah, 5,000 crystals to essentially get enough Gyrda Keypads for one character. Arguably, yes, it's a lot, but you're not going to be Relic 9ing characters out of the wazoo, are you? There may be a subset of you that is not actually in the position to actually start farming that Mark III guild currency. Maybe you're not able to hit the latest featured raid, so you just can't earn those tokens and convert them into your higher end bits of Relic Scrap, and that is a shame. It does mean that we're going to have to rely on the Jawa Scavenger in order to get those pieces. So let's talk about each of those then. Electrium Conductors first and foremost. You will be able to break down some of your Gear 12 pieces, and the only bit of advice that I can give you is to look at maybe doing the full pieces over here. In order to build one of the full pieces, you will need 30 of the salvage and a few bits of nominal Gear 11, sort of Gear 7 to 11 gear. If you take a look, if we put 30 of this base piece, this armor tech here, it'll give us 470 points, or just below 6 full Electrium Conductors. But if you were to craft this full piece over here, which costs you the same number of that Gear 12 piece, but also some additional purple gear, it actually gives you so much more. Booyah, you get twice as much value from it. So 1,050 for a full piece there. Alternatively, you can get 450. It's over twice as much value. Yes, it costs you a little bit more gear, but not necessarily more Gear 12 gear. This is a more efficient way, in my opinion, of getting those Electrium Conductors. Moving on to the Zinbiddles, and it's not quite the same. It still uses some Gear 12 plus pieces here, but actually putting them into the fully crafted piece isn't worth your time. As you can see, in order for us to craft this piece over here, we need 50 of these base pieces, but also 30,000 credits. Now, I'm not saying 30,000 credits is going to break the bank, but when we looked how much 50 gives us, it's 900 points. Exactly the same value as if we built the full piece. So just don't waste your credits and convert the item directly. Finally, preemptively, we've got impulse detectors, and this is where things just get a little bit funky, truth be told, because once again, you can craft the full piece over here, and as you can see, it takes 30 of these Gear 12 pieces and a nominal amount of credits, so you would think that 30 of these would equal 360 points, or whatever that turns into in terms of impulse detectors, but 30 of these actually give you 414 points, or just shy of 4 whole pieces, so you're actually losing out by crafting the full piece because it gives you less. Now, it doesn't matter when you are just putting 30 in, but if you were to put in, say, 40, or perhaps let's go with 42 pieces, you're actually getting 5 full pieces. And yes, obviously it doesn't quite convert, but all I'm saying is you can fine-tune this to get yourself a better return on investment. Don't build the full piece when you're going to get impulse detectors. And finally, Gyrda Keypads. This is the one that will break you. It is painful. It requires hard, difficult to get, rare and valuable gear. We're talking about those rare Gear 12 plus pieces that you need for relicking your characters so badly. Look at those furnaces. It's 50 pieces, you get 3. We need 20 Gyrda Keypads to take a character to Relic 9. So if you look how much that would cost, it's just absurd. It's like, oh gosh, painful. 260 furnaces, 260 of these Gear 12 plus pieces to get one Gyrda Keypad, and it doesn't actually improve if you were to build the full piece once again, because it costs us too much. You see, it takes 50 of those stun guns in order to get that, so if we were to look at 50, that gives you just below 3, and it gives you the same value. It's just not worth it. You're just going to cry. So in my opinion, you're better off just getting yourself 5,000 crystals, and buying it straight out of the weekly shipments. Just buy these Gyrda Keypads directly from the weekly shipments and save yourself the heartache and the pain. There are 2 items of scrap that you can't actually get from the Jawa scavenger, and that's going to be your Aeromagnifiers as well as your Droid Brains. Droid Brains, unfortunately, you can only really get from weekly shipments for kind of an expensive breakdown. This is really, really costly. Or through territory wars by winning, but you have to be over a certain threshold. I think it's over 300 million total guild GP and the sign up, and you have to win to get additional ones. Or you can get it from Duel of the Fates and Peridia Patrol, but it's random. There's no guarantees that you actually get Droid Brains. Same goes for Aeromagnifiers. You can also get these from stuff like guild stores, but the Mark III currency for this is pretty bad value again. You can do it if you've got an overflow, but I would save it for a last resort. Certainly you could get it through the weekly shipments, but again, very expensive. And of course, you can get them from territory wars. Those are sort of your main source, is territory wars, but I appreciate you've got 4 of them a month. You need to be over a certain guild GP threshold, and you need to also win. So it's tricky. I do highly, highly recommend that everybody invest in a Relic 9 Master Qui-Gon Jinn and Padawan Obi-Wan. It pays itself off after about 18 months, a year and a half or so, and go to at least Relic 7 on Peridia Patrol. Relic 9 is a lot bigger return on investment. It's like 3 years, but Relic 7 will give you useful characters that you need to unlock for Baylan Skoll anyway, or GL Ahsoka Tano, apologies, not Baylan Skoll. Give you some decent characters that fit into some pretty good teams and still get you at least some of the rewards, even if you don't get the very top end Relic pieces. It's still worthwhile doing. And that's going to about do it. Those are all the tips and tricks that I use to help get Relic levels faster and faster in my account. What you will notice is as your account grows and you get into better and better guilds and you're able to get better and better rewards from your raid, that this process will accelerate and you'll find new pinch points. Maybe at certain points you didn't have a problem with impulse detectors. Maybe at certain points you had no problems with Bronzium Wirings, but now you do, based on how much investment that you've made. But essentially, if you stick to these rules, I will not steer you wrong, and you will be relicking up your characters faster than you thought possible. Give me a comment in the section down below, let me know if I've missed anything, and I'll see you all in the very next video. Peace out, may the Force be with you.